rainfall would be moving in, and then you would get that potential tornado. Here's a new scan from our First Alert radar. You can see right here live, and again, there's that hook appendage there. So when you look at the storm, this is a severe part of the storm here. This is the storm that's producing lots of heavy rain, wind, and hail, but this on the backside, that's where we're going to be looking for that, where that potential tornado would be. So I know sometimes it's a little deceiving when you're looking at the radar picture because you see this part of the storm and you say, whoa, that's the storm, part of the storm that we're watching out for. So if you see this heading towards you, you get very concerned. But really, it's this little notch right here, this little appendage on the backside. They're just around the Millsbrook area or just to the east now. That's where that potential tornado would be sitting there as it lifts on out towards the north and east. So it'll be traveling between Wyoming and Princeville, but right now basically approaching Illinois 78 from the south and west, and that will continue to lift on off towards the north and east there, again heading towards Valley as well. So as Kevin puts an updated tracker on this for you, you can see Wyoming, we're talking in less than 20 minutes this storm will be towards you. Don't wait for 15 minutes and then go to your safe place. Go ahead and start making your way there. Make sure that you have your severe weather kit with you and you're ready to be safe and take shelter. Turn the TV all the way up, that way you can hear it if you're heading down towards the basement or anything, and just be ready to listen for the severe weather updates. But again, you'll want to be in your safe place well before the storm moves through, because again, as Kevin mentioned, it is going to be a lot of rain before the storm would move through. He's putting on the velocity here, and yeah, we can definitely see there's that little return there indicating where that tornado would be there, Kevin.
Yeah, and that's something, again, that we've had a confirmed tornado. And in fact, here's a train spotter reports a tornado touchdown about 1 mile south of Dehinda. So that's in Knox County, Illinois.
Wow.
I'll get an actual, personally, I've never heard of that town or I've seen that show up on our map. So I'm kind of pulling it up within a different program just to get a better idea so we can zoom in on it and really show the folks what we're talking about here on air. So it's pretty much just north of the Spoon River and east of Highway 15. So again, that's going to be tracking off to the north and east. So I mean, again, much of Stark County is going to be underneath that severe thunderstorm warning capable of producing a tornado. And again, that appendage is looking pretty healthy right now as the lightning continues to be just really ramping up.
Exactly. And of course, with the warning, as you mentioned, they're talking about the severe thunderstorm capable of producing the tornado. You have to understand that, again, this part of the storm stretching from Princeville all the way up through Wyoming and Toulon, that's a severe part of the thunderstorm. So you're going to see a severe thunderstorm in a large part of this area that can produce damaging winds, large hail, and it's going to be right here on the backside where we have all this lightning and this little appendage showing up here. That's where the tornado is going to be, and we've already got reports of a confirmed tornado on the ground with that cell. So that's the tornado tracking off towards the east-northeast here. And again, we're still watching these two complexes of storm, but notice there's a lot more space in between these storms. So again, that means that they're not necessarily kind of trying to play off of the same energy. So they have the potential to continue to track off without kind of weakening or falling apart immediately. Here's an update as Kevin kind of takes us up towards the north again, and you can see there's another storm. And again, there you see it. There's the severe part of the storm, and here's that little appendage there. Another storm here with this tornado warning storm from Bureau and Whiteside counties here until 3:45. And again, you see all the lightning, the hail, the heavy rain that's stretching from Harmon over towards East Grove, but it's on the back side of that storm where that potential tornado would be. Again, that little appendage or hook area there, that's where your tornado is going to sit. And yeah, you can see that really showing up here a little bit there on the velocity as well there, Kevin. Yeah. So,
and here's a good thing too. It is starting to push very much just outside of the viewing area as well. So we might be able to kind of let this one go once it scoots south there of the Sterling Rock Falls area. But as we get into Amboy, those areas in Lee County, Illinois, that's something that we'll continue to monitor. I haven't seen any reports out of at least our chat service yet of a confirmed tornado with that. But we're certainly dealing with some spin in the atmosphere there, and we're allowing that tornado warning to continue until 3:45. So we just want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases here. We want to make sure everybody's updated with those. We're focusing quite a bit there on the south, but until 3:45, the very eastern part there of Whiteside County and northern Bureau County under the tornado warning. And of course, looks like we're just continuing a severe thunderstorm warning on the other side of it, where you were saying, hey, that's where most of the hail and rain is right
that's
now.
Right.
So.
That's right. And where the lightning and a lot of the strong winds are as well. And of course, as this storm kind of moves on through, one of the things things you were showing there, if you could go back to velocity, also just to point out that not all, like, you know, it's not always cut and dry, whether it's going to be a straight line wind event or a tornado event, or it could be something like a microburst that you can have showing up here. And what we want to watch for, again, is when you see these strong indications of wind going in and outside of that, microbursts can produce as much damage as any type of a tornado. In fact, you'll see a lot of times, but it'll be more widespread. So it may not actually, tornado damage, remember, it kind of follows a path of where that area of rotation goes. So that's where you see the significant damage, and away from that, not nearly as much. With microbursts or straight line wind damage, yeah, that can be more widespread. So while it may not be necessarily a specific tornado, the actual storm that's actually not a tornado, a severe thunderstorm, could actually produce more widespread damage as opposed to just being in a narrow corridor that sees a lot of heavy damage as well. And we'll continue to watch this storm as it lifts on off towards the north and east there. Again, back to the south, you can definitely see we're keeping an eye on an area of rotation there. Also, that continues to lift there. That storm looks to be getting a little more organized there with its supercell characteristics there and that appendage as it lifts on off towards the north and east. So we've got to kind of keep a close eye on that again here. This goes until 4 o'clock for Stark County, although it's beginning to move out of there now and moving off just outside of our viewing area there. But we'll continue to keep an eye on that here as that area of spin. You can see a very broad area of spin showing up even on our velocities here, which, of course, what is velocity? It's basically the radar being able to detect precipitation. So it can detect the raindrops that come down, but it can also show where the rain is flowing from. So with any type of storm, you know, if you're driving into a storm, you get the rain that's kind of driving into your windshield. And if you're driving away and a storm is in the backside of the wind and the rain is moving in a different direction. The same thing is what the velocity can do. It can detect which direction the raindrops are going. So if you see an area going this way and an area going this way in a short little span, it tells us that there's some rotation there. Somewhere that wind is turning around and we're seeing that rotation. So that's what we look for here. Very decent couplet showing up there just south and west of Princeville there, and maybe a little sign of something going on down there. So that's something we're going to watch. One thing we watch for with this is radar usually detects in red where the rain is occurring at this time. That's the natural precipitation, but when you start to see different colors like yellow and purple showing up, that's an indication of something other than actual rain falling and being detected by the radar, usually what we detect as debris. So that's why we watch that for you very closely. Kevin, I don't know if we can do like a wide view again and just kind of showcase that if you can. Oh yeah.
I'm multitasking over here too. I'm into one Facebook Live, we're starting another, and
exactly.
now we're resetting everything.
That's it. Yeah.
And it sounds like we have some video just into the newsroom. Sharon DeReek now in studio with us. So hey, Sharon, help us out here. What do you have for us?
Well, we're getting tons of different pieces of video as well as pictures into the newsroom. This is one of the ones that we've received. Now, this is not from our area. This is near Charles City, Iowa, which is kind of up near Waterloo. You can see this appears to be a very large tornado. It was on the ground there, moving across this farm field. We don't know at this point if any buildings were damaged or anything at that point, but it does appear to be a pretty large tornado, and of course that system moved through that area before it came to us. So dangerous conditions all around the state of Iowa and the Midwest this afternoon for sure. All right, and now this is Davenport. This is in our viewing area. This is near River Drive and Mound. Look at the volume of water coming out of the storm drain there. Just a massive amount of water, and that just shows you how quickly the rain came down this afternoon. We got numerous reports of flash flooding, not just in this area, but in streets all over the area, low-lying areas where there weren't just inches of water, but several feet of water on the roads at one time or another. So if you are driving around anywhere in the Quad Cities this afternoon, you really need to pay attention. Don't drive mindlessly. You never know when you could run into something like this. This is from the Davenport Police Facebook page. So again, a reminder of how quickly the water can go up, and flash flooding is not to be messed with. All right, Cedric.
Oh yes, you're right, Sharon. And I'll tell you what, that water really illustrates here. Of course, when we talk about flash flooding and that rain coming down in such a short period of time, it literally has nowhere to go, and especially for us because we're already dealing with river flooding and prolonged flooding from other flood events. So that water falls, it has nowhere to go, and you see it gushing out of the manholes there and all those different areas of waterways. And you can see radar here. This is what Kevin is plotting for us now, the accumulated radar, or what we've seen so far here with these storms as they've made their way through. And you can see a track of some heavy rainfall of between 1 to 3 inches there, stretching from about Muscatine right up to the Quad Cities, up towards Clinton and Sterling, and then another another batch with those other storms that made their way from Burlington over towards Galesburg and right up towards right now where we're tracking those storms moving out of Stark County as well. So flash flooding has been a big issue. It will continue to be a big issue because these storms produce quite a bit of heavy rainfall. Now, we may talk about rainfall rates of you may pick up an inch or so an hour. Well, the problem is the storm doesn't sit there for an hour. So that means you pick up an inch in less than an hour. So that almost doubles what you see in a short period of time, and that water has nowhere to go. So it can be very dangerous, if not life-threatening, for the first hour or two after these storms move on through. And then, of course, after time goes by and the rain stops, the water is able to slowly recede and start to run off. But it takes a long time for that to happen. And when you have storms moving through, it does not help that that's a big issue taking place there. So that's something that continues to watch there. The good news is some of the heaviest rainfall now moving out of the areas that you see from the metro area, the Quad Cities back over towards Burlington, where we are under flash flood warnings right now. So that water is slowly able to recede, but we don't need any more rainfall. But sadly, looks like the forecast does call for more of that here in the future there.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately it does. And, I've been saying this all day long, that the river flooding is the long game. The short term, it's certainly going to be flash flooding here. In fact, one of the reasons why we have the first alert day in effect is for flash flooding. In fact, as we were discussing early on today, that flash flooding is probably your biggest threat area-wide out of severe weather. But of course, as we get into the rest of today, those isolated tornado threats, that's starting to push down the very eastern fringe of our viewing area and then hail into a high wind to a lesser extent. We're probably going to see a lot of this wrap up here fairly shortly, but we're getting new video into the newsroom right now. And Sharon, looks like some of that water getting pretty high.
Yeah, you were talking about flash flooding, and this is a really good example of this. This is River Drive in Moline, just outside the Tax Slayer Center. You can see that car driving through way too much water for a car to drive through. We are told this car did stall out.
Oh, no.
The driver is okay, but this same area, maybe a month or so ago when we had heavy rain, had the very same thing happen. Several cars drove through the water, and then the cars were obviously ruined because you cannot drive a car through this much water. So folks, if you're driving and you see a wall of water in front of you, you need to turn around. We say it every single time we're on the air. Turn around, don't drown. This is just silly. Do not drive through this much water. It comes up really quickly, it goes away really quickly, but you cannot drive through all this water. Now we have some more flood video. This is Silver Creek, I believe. This is in Davenport. And you can see here, just look, this is normally a very peaceful, small little creek, and it's turned into a river. I mean, you can see there's like rapids going down the street there. Is this in West Davenport? I believe Silver Creek is in West Davenport. Yes, in West Davenport. So again, another example of how quickly that rain fell. It pushed creeks out of its banks. It's spilling into the streets. It probably won't last long. It typically does not. But again, if you see a scene like this, do not try to drive through it because you don't know how deep that water is, and there could be the manhole covers could be blown off. I mean, don't walk through the water because you could fall into the storm drains, and it's certainly very dangerous. So I'm going to send it back to either Cedric or Kevin. You tell me who. It looks like Cedric.
Oh, right. Yeah. Thanks, Sharon. And Sharon made a great point there. She was actually pointing out that video there with the creek there and how it's typically a small, peaceful creek, and then all of a sudden like a river rapids that are coming across the roadways there. And that's very important to point out because with flash flooding, I know a lot of times you may look at the water and you say, oh, it's not that deep. It's like waist deep. It's not going to be a problem. But what you don't understand is that that water is coming from a lot of different places. So the current is very strong when those type of situations there. And it only takes, a foot, maybe a foot and a half to actually sweep a person off of their feet when it comes to those rapidly flowing currents there. And that's the other issue there. Not only that, but also when you're in that water, whether you're driving and you stall out and you have to get out, or you're just trying to go wandering through that water, you also have to remember that there's also debris that's flowing through that water as well at different speeds. So if you all of a sudden have some type of a 2x4 that's flowing through that water, you don't see it and it's flowing pretty fast, that can cause more injuries and a long-term problem there. So flooding is just something that we always want to warn you about. It's not something that that necessarily folks think about, but it's one of the top weather killers out there, and so you have to be aware of that going through through this time when we're tracking the severe weather. I think Kevin has an update here on our tornado warning.
Yeah, we actually got a new tornado warning into the office until 4:15 p.m. for southern Lee County there in Illinois. So we're talking south of Amboy, south of Dixon there, south of Interstate 88. So it's something that we're going to keep a little bit of a close eye on, but we're starting to get into fringe areas of our viewing area. So we're not going to carry coverage for all that much longer, at least on the air. We'll be doing it on Facebook Live off and on here throughout the show, but throughout the afternoon. This particular one is certainly a radar indicated tornado. We got quarter-sized hail. It's moving to the east. It appears to be at around 30 to 35 miles per hour. So if you know folks in Paw Paw, you have the I-39 corridor there right on the edge of Lee County, Illinois. Those are going to be the areas. Sublette, Illinois is in that area.